that really keep on mind for a police chief that you would want?
I would think the first quality that I would want the new police chief to possess, him or her, would be that of intellectual curiosity, just to be curious about this place, to really study the history of this place. And I think that few people actually do that in public service. So intellectual curiosity to do the study of Charleston, and I can give them, in summary, the history of Charleston. Established West Side as 5 slave plantations almost no one talks about. They were developed with rigid segregation that no one talks about, and that was totally disrupted with the interstate highway being constructed and with the downtown Triangle District, where you and I are currently sitting. This used to be a predominantly African-American residential community from Capitol Street all the way down to the railroad, 45 degrees west to the Elk River and back. And so the displacement of all of the people in the Triangle District is something that is a nightmare that many blacks chose to forget, and that many whites choose to have historical amnesia, failing to really acknowledge how it totally disrupted the life of a large portion of the African American community. If you don't understand that, you don't understand the complexity of the west side of Charleston, of how those people were crammed into that community, and you don't understand parts of the East End. So historical, intellectual curiosity to understand how the West Side, how the East End, how North Charleston, how Edgewood was developed as a rigidly racially segregated, no blacks allowed, community, South Hills, etc. Those things will be helpful for the new police chief to understand the current lay of the land. So that's where it would start. Secondly, I think you really have to listen and talk to the people. And there was a time when a previous police chief, Mr. Brent Webster, he met with a group of African American leaders at least twice a month to hear from us, to understand what our concerns was with the Charleston Police Department, how they were policing the neighborhood and the community, to get ideas from us as to what we thought they could do differently, how they could improve community policing. And I'm not sure if the previous mayor was aware of that, because he would not allow people in the city of Charleston to talk to me. They couldn't even talk to me. Right. They were not allowed to talk with me because I have my own opinion. I think with my own mind. I'm very respectful, but there are times that I have to speak what I believe to be in the best interest of the people that I represent, and the previous mayor did not like that. Fortunately, the new mayor have given the green light that anybody in the city of Charleston can talk to me, and if I call, then she would expect them at least to respond to the telephone call, and we certainly appreciate that. So I think an openness. I'm a former engineer in my previous life, and I learned something very simple from one of the great engineers in the history of the United States of America, Charles F. Kettering, a brilliant engineer with the General Motors Corporation. And Kettering is quoted as having said that a problem well defined is a problem half solved. The Kettering principle, a problem well defined is a problem half solved. I learned as a young engineering student, used as an engineering student, as a practicing engineer, and I've used it currently as a community developer, as a pastor. I'm always trying to understand what is the problem. The problem well defined is a problem half solved. And then secondly, the Watts axiom that I've developed is that the answer to every problem is in the problem. And I learned that from math and physics and biology and chemistry, that you have a problem, you have things that's in the problem, and then you have to get the right formula, the right equation to solve the problem. So I believe that people are pretty smart if you listen to them. I think that people know what hurts them, know what makes them feel good, know what angers them, know what brings them joy. If you listen to them, they will help you define the problem. And they also will help you postulate solutions to the problem. But very often, city municipalities don't think that poor people have much to offer them. They see poor people and poor community as a problem, as the problem to be managed. And I would say to the new police chief that the city of 50,000, 47 to 50,000, however many people we have in this city, you cannot police them with 180 police officers without their consent. Without their consent. In other words, you try to create a police state, you can go with zero tolerances. The people have to understand what your philosophy is for policing. They got to trust you. They got to believe that you respect them, you respect their community, and you have their best interest at heart. and you would take time to hear them. I think intellectual curiosity, I think a willingness to learn and to listen, some of the attributes that I'll be looking for. And I would just assume that they would know what they were doing, and they would have experience and background in law enforcement, and they would understand the importance of the rule of law, right? And the police is the only group that can police the police, right? So they got to police themselves first. Those things are given. I would love for them to do something a little bit differently, and that is to seriously look at someone outside of Charleston. In the past, I don't remember a police chief in my 40 years here that ever was voted from the outside. It may have happened. I just simply don't believe it. But it would be interesting to at least interview some candidates from larger cities that they may have not been the police chief, but they were in senior level positions, right? Charleston is a small city with big city problems. We have the same problems as any major urban city because of the traffic into Charleston, particularly with the drug traffickers in particular. So we have the major problems of urban cities, but we're still a small city. It'd be interesting for someone from the outside to come in and analyze our approach to law enforcement and see what they would say in terms of here would be my philosophy, here's how I would go about it. I think it would certainly be interesting to at least interview some candidates, even if the selection, when you came down to it, you selected someone from inside.
And that's definitely an interesting perspective. Also, I know just kind of talking about a candidate that understands the community, but also the area and the history of that, but then also the people that you're serving. Absolutely. And just kind of, I know, I think of previously, I know they've been doing certain more rounds, or just doing more community activities so they can actually understand the people and kind of get to know the community and what they need from the police. Yeah. And I think also, I was going to ask just about the quality of integrity, considering the allegations of the last police chief. I think that's really something that a lot of people, I don't know if that's something you're looking into with the new police chief as well, considering, again, those allegations with the former police chief.
Yeah, I think everyone wants to have integrity, and I think that our human frailties, I think our propensities to get ourselves in compromising situations can compromise the person of the most highest integrity, right? So I didn't delve deeply into what happened to the previous police chief. I hope things work well for he and his family and for all those people that were involved. But you certainly would want the candidate to be someone that's been thoroughly vetted, and that has a reputation of being someone of integrity, of character, that's trustworthy, and that can lead men and women, and that people will follow. And I think that's really important. And I'm confident that this man in her administration, that when you get more than one chance to do something, you get better at it, right? and not that they had a bad choice, because I don't want to cast any dispersion or besmirch anybody that I don't even know. But it's an important job. I provided the police officers some years ago on 2 separate occasions with some diversity and sensitivity training, right? All 182 of the police officers. I did it twice. One time I did it by myself. That was back in the 1990s when there was a major episode in this city, a major incident. A 76-year-old woman got in an altercation with a young Caucasian police officer over whether or not she could transfer off of the bus, the transit mall. And so what happened was the 76-year-old lady was saying that she could transfer. The bus driver said, no, you got to pay another fare. They got an altercation. He called the police. They got to fussing, whatever. I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe the 76-year-old lady, I don't know if she put a hand on the police, but anyway, the police officer pepper sprayed her. It became a major incident. I'm talking about marching. There was marches down from Charleston. African Americans came to City Hall for a major event, right? And that led to then the Mayor G. Kemp Melton to realize that I need to do something differently. And at the time, I was still working for a major corporation, had been involved in a lot of diversity training in the corporation, and I offered, to provide training with the police. And they resented it. I mean, I'm talking about, they sitting there at first, Mike, they was like this, right? But as we talked, toward the end, I think I still have the note. They gave me pretty high ratings for the training as we talked to them. And I talked about the history. So you got to understand one thing, Bert, the African American people that are anywhere near my age, right, view law enforcement totally differently, right, than what you would view law enforcement. Because for us, law enforcement, it was the embodiment of an unjust, unfair, Gestapo type of apartheid government. That the police were on the point, and they were to impose laws that was not fair and not just, that they themselves did not create. You see what I'm saying? I say so many African Americans never saw the police as serving and protecting. So there's a fundamental basic distrust that black people have with law enforcement that's historical, right? Because the way law enforcement has been used in African American communities. And after they heard me say that, then they started to open up a bit. And I say that we can look at the same thing and we can see something totally differently. And if you don't recognize that and understand it, you will never effectively police African American communities. Because those of us who are open-minded blacks, we gotta move beyond our bias, right? Because we've all, the majority of us, have had, I don't know how many times I've gotten stopped by the Charles Police Department. I don't get stopped anymore about it because I used to have someone gave me as a gift a black Cadillac. And it was 10 years old, but it had been well maintained and well kept, right? They just wanted me to drive it, right? So, and I drove it. I got stopped. My children would get stopped. I finally got rid of it because I got tired of being stopped by the police, right? It fit a profile. You got a black guy driving a black Cadillac, and the windows are not, they're tinted, but they're not illegal. So we got to stop them. I'm an archival amateur historian. I was coming across some articles while I was on a trip in Atlanta. I took 2 briefcases. I've been going through some articles. This is a historic year for some things that happened with black people 20 years ago. And I came across an article from 2004 in the Charleston Gazette newspaper. The mayor, Danny Jones, was opposed to a racial profiling bill that the legislature was considering. And he was opposed to that racial profiling bill. He says because black people, they commit more crime. His point was they get stopped more, so they're going to accuse us of racial profile. That's exactly the point, right? We're getting stopped more. So to make a long story short, the bill did pass, and the Western State Police were responsible for collecting data on the race and the reason that people were stopped. They collected 301,479 traffic stops on Western highways over a 1.5-year period. After collecting all that data, what they found that African Americans were stopped and searched and ticketed at a higher rate than Caucasians and Hispanics. But when stopped and searched and ticketed, they're found to have drugs and contraband at a lower rate, right? Stopped at a higher rate, searched at a higher rate, and ticketed at a higher rate, but found the have drugs and contraband at a lower rate. That's what the report said. But nothing was done with the report, and the state police said, we still didn't raise a profile. And I said, wait a minute. I said, tell you, here's what I'll give you. If you were stopping black people, searching black people, and they were found to have drugs and contraband at a higher rate, I would say you guys are brilliant. I don't know how y'all figured this out, but y'all knew who to stop and who to search, right? I say, but by you stopping them and searching them at a higher rate, and they found drugs and contraband at a low, why were they being stopped at a higher rate? They could give no explanation. So then what we found out, they actually could have went back to the actual police officers, because a friend of mine, Dr. Stephen Haas, had developed all these survey instruments and everything like that. He collected the data, but they never did anything to it. But my point, the reason I share that is that even when there's empirical data, just say that black people are treated differently, then there's a reason to say, well, that doesn't mean what it appears to. It doesn't mean what it appears to me, right? Some kind of way they tried to explain it away, and so nothing ever was done with that racial profiling report.
And I know you said Charleston's kind of small city with big city problems. Do you think, this is, I know you're talking about that's kind of a few years ago, but it's been a historical issue over the years. Do you think it doesn't matter who the next chief is. Do you think still, diversity should be a focus moving forward for the police department? 'Cause I know you said you've done training in past years, but not really recent years with that.
And that's been many years. Reverend James Ely and I, the last time we did the training, maybe 10 years ago, and he and I, we together we did. This time they were more receptive because some of the officers had gone through the training the first time. They now were lieutenants, and they invited us in to do it. Brett Webster was the police chief, and John Shannon was on his lieutenant. And these were guys that were officers when I did the training years before. So they understood the value of it. And they trusted Reverend Ely and I enough to let us come in because they knew that we weren't going to come and just bash the police, right?
Yeah.
That type of thing. So we were not going to do that. See, but here's the problem with law enforcement. It's not a problem with law enforcement. The problem is we're trying to solve social problems, economic problems, and family problems with law enforcement. So the primary response to the challenges facing a poor community is more law enforcement. But the problem isn't the law enforcement problem. Look at the west side of Charleston, for example, and this is the problem that Mayor Amy Schuler Goodwin inherited. There's been a massive exodus from the west side of Charleston over the last 40 years, and that has left hundreds of vacant properties. The city in the past was just negligent. It was derelict. It wasn't paying attention. Even though a friend of mine, Bob Hardy, did a massive inspection of 5,000 properties over 20 years ago, and told the city, if you don't address this problem, it's only going to metastasize, and they didn't address it. So now these vacant properties, they become magnets for homelessness, for substance misuse, for people who have a place to be, for drug traffickers. It's not a law enforcement problem. It is a problem of vacant properties. It's a problem of the decline and the deterioration of a neighborhood or community. But who responds to it? The first responders are the police. And they're the only ones, only 3 groups that you can depend on. And they're going to respond. And I give them their props. You call the Charleston PD, they are going to show up. And it's not going to take long for them to get there. You call the Charleston Fire Department, they're going to show up. It's not going to take them long to get there. And the Charleston Sanitation Department, you just about can plan anything you want to plan because they're going to run on time every week. And they're going to do this. Those 3 are going to respond and do what they're supposed to do. But the problems that the West Side faces, for example, in parts of the East End, are problems of the lack of a coherent, cohesive, comprehensive plan that they worked on but have yet to complete. There is no plan for the west side of Charleston right now that's completed. The problem is the other parts of the government, of city government, has not been as responsive as it should have been. So these problems have just gone on for years unaddressed. And there's been deterioration, disintegration, and erosion in the community over the years. And so, but the police are put in this unenviable task of having to respond to a lot of things that's really not things that it really falls within, but they're the ones that will come and will show up and respond. So this is bigger than the police chief, but it does rest with the police chief. This group of people, they're the embodiment of the city. Most people don't know who their city council person is, right? They know who the mayor is, that's about it. They don't know who that large council person is, right? They don't understand all of that. No. But they recognize police officers, the patrol their neighborhoods. They're in these uniforms, and they know their faces, right? And they get to recognize who they are. So by them having on these uniforms that distinguish them from everybody else in the community, period, and every other city employee, they become the face of the community, of the city. They are the face of the city.
And that's why I also think, obviously another trait, just good leadership qualities, and especially being the face of the city. I know even coming back from the allegations of the previous police chief, I think, they kind of have to not restructure, but kind of regroup the organization and bring that positive face back to them. Because like you said, they're the ones you see on the street. They're the ones you see out, policing the neighborhoods, in the community, doing just kind of talking with people and being that presence.
Absolutely. And I think the police chief, second only to the mayor, is the chief public relations person for any city municipality. And so therefore they should be at as many public events as they can be at when things are going well. When there's no press conference to talk about a major drug raid or major drug bust or about a murder, right? I remember, I thought this was effective in sharing with the police. They wonder, why are the kids so angry? Why are the kids so disrespectful of us, right? And I said, well, think about this, right? You guys normally don't show up until there's a problem. You're kicking somebody's door in, you're dragging somebody's mom out, you're dragging somebody's father out. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's the way they normally see you. And when they watch television, you know, they kicking people's door in, they dragging people out, they beating people up. I say, so that's what they see police do. And I was at this was really profound. I was at a training. It wasn't a training, we were doing an assembly at formerly Stonewall Jackson Middle School, now Westside Middle. And there was a police officer there, and he didn't mean any harm. But here's what he said. He said, a lot of people don't like me, right? They don't like the police department because we have to take the trash out of the community. And I just cringed when he said that. I said, man, you're on the west side of Charleston. A lot of these kids' parents have been arrested. A lot of these kids' parents are in prison. They're in jail. And you say that their parents are the trash of the community, right? And I said, man, I don't know if you'll recover from that. I mean, you don't need to go back and talk to those kids, because they done with you.
I said that just goes back to just understanding the people in your community, and like especially the different areas, and like what those people are dealing with day to day, and like so it's wow.
So those are some of my thoughts. I'm an old man now. My grandkids and my children remind me of that. I say, yeah, I am. I'm an old man. I've become an old man, and I think when you know that you become old, and you know that people see you as being old, then you don't get frustrated. You don't get frustrated when you see people making the same mistakes. And you say, well, they got to make their own mistakes, you know, because they're not open to the counsel of an older person who has been there in this road before. I shared with there's an excellent article you should read. Laura Harbert Allen. She just did a 4-part piece about the west side of Charleston. It's online. She interviewed a lot of people. They worked on it for months. It's a great piece. And as I was reading it, she reminded me of something that I said, right? And I say this often. This is another Watts axiom. I said, you know, I have a PhD in how to not get anything done.